YouTube vinyl community, Jandek fans, random people on the internet, my name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about Jandek's album, Rudyards, released in 2020, recorded in 2009. This is a live album, and in the current style of Jandek's releases, he's been putting out a lot of live albums lately. The last decade or so, he's been recording every single show. Well, he's been recording shows since he started playing live. But as he's recorded those, he'll release them as albums years later, sometimes fairly close to the original date of the show, but most of the time a lot later. And this was one that I've waited to come out for a long time. Way back in college, a clip surfaced of him and his group doing this show on YouTube, and it was him with two guys, a drummer and a bass player, and they were playing this really funky riff, this real bouncy, funky dance riff, and the crowd was going crazy. They're dancing, there's people making out, it's this whole little groovy show, and Jandek's having the time of his life playing this really cool abstract guitar over on top of it all. And it just became this thing that was like, this is a Jandek concert, and people are dancing, they're like bouncing around, and they're like chanting back with him. He'll say a couple of lines and the people will respond to it. He'll be like, I'm drunk, yeah, I'm sober, yeah. And the whole atmosphere was bizarre because we had known Jandek as making really introspective music that is in a different tuning and it's really heavy stuff, and then to hear a sort of light version of music come from him, it just adds to the palette of what he's produced over the last 40 odd years. You never know what you're going to get with him, which I think is the fantastic thing about him, is that he keeps you on the edge of your seat constantly. So I was ready for this thing to come out, and so finally in 2020 it just came out a couple years ago, and it's just one track. The one track is called 2 O'Clock Sun, and here's the back cover as every Jandek album looks. 2 O'Clock Sun. It's an hour and 15 minutes long. It's the entire thing. It's one piece. There's no breaks. It's one long jam session, and after listening to it all in whole, because I never heard the entire thing before, hearing the whole thing is one piece, you feel for the players, because the amount of stamina to keep up for an hour-long jam, it's a lot of work. Especially the drummer. He's holding on that beat non-stop. He's got that groove going the entire time. And they all change things up. They're not playing the exact same thing for the entire hour and 15 minutes. They change it up, they make it super fun and different, and Jandek will come in and sing some words, or then he won't sing, or he'll let the bass do the talking for a while. The drummer gets some time. But what I really enjoyed about it was, it was all like for my ears, it sounded like a standard tuning kind of show. And hearing Jandek kind of riff over that with his guitar, whether he was doing like, I don't want to say Sonic Youthian, Velvet Undergroundian stuff, but the way he was playing his guitar, there was no like attack to it. There was no chillness to it. He blended in so well with the players by adding his own layer on top. So whereas the other guys are playing a little straight, for lack of a better term, he's doing these like atmospheric kind of things, where he's kind of playing things that sound a little bit spacey or a little bit drony, or he'll do some soloing here and there. It was fun to hear him play like this because he's a really interesting guitarist. And to hear him work with other musicians is always fascinating me, because you're in Jandek's world when you play with him. He's the director, and you got to keep up. But with this one, it felt like a band. It felt like all three of them were like, yeah, we are all on the same page. We are gelling. We know exactly what's going to happen next. We know where we're going. All right, let's change it here. All right, we'll keep up. It felt like that the entire way through. It was a really fun listen. It's fun to hear the crowd so excited. It's fun to hear him having a good time. And you can hear the drummer and the bass player having a great time, too. I'm unfamiliar with their names, unfortunately, because there's no credits on this thing. It just says it was recorded April 5th, 2009 at Rudyards in Houston, Texas. And that's all we get. I'm sure the information's out there. as it has been for a long time now. Long story short, whenever Jandek goes to a town, he finds local musicians to jam with, and they get together beforehand. They rehearse a little bit, and he kind of gives them a rundown of what he wants to do, and they keep up with him. And that's it. So it's musical improvisation, spontaneity, flying up the seat of your pants, really listening to the other players. It's fantastic. It's really cool stuff to listen to. And hearing him work in this sort of funk idiom was great, because he's put out so much different music, whether it's just bass and a piano, or just bass and a vocal, or just a guitar, or just a guitar and a vocal. I mean, he's done so many different things. So to hear this version of him was awesome. Not sure when this picture was taken, probably the late 80s, early 90s, I'm guessing. But yeah, for an hour and 15-minute long jam, it doesn't get boring, it doesn't let up, it picks up, it ebbs, it flows. You're really in it for the whole show, and it's such an enjoyable listen. So if you've never heard a Jandek album before, I don't know if this is the one I would start with, because it's a whole different game after this one. But what I would recommend is checking out some of the other stuff first, and then picking this one up. He's put out a lot of live albums lately, and they've all been very different. I got to see him live in 2017, and that was fascinating. And it was a much different show compared to this one. The guys, the people he was playing with, I think there was like 4 or 5 people there. I can't remember, but it was very much I always use the word atmospheric when I talk about Jandek, because he creates a feeling. He creates something tangible, because feelings change, and you change, and everything's always moving, and that's kind of how I feel like his music is. It was a fascinating night, and maybe I'll make a whole video about that someday. But yeah, this is a really fun release, and I'm gonna do some more of his albums in the future, because he's a really interesting musical project to talk about. Whether he's playing by himself or with others, the idea of creating something different that is unlike anything you've ever heard before, it takes guts to do that, and it takes guts to release it, and it takes guts to accept feedback and keep going. And he's done this for over 40 years now. So I mean, it's a testament to him being a true artist. And being a true artist is wearing your heart on your sleeve and putting out what feels right to you, whether or not there's an audience or not. It's about putting out what you feel is inside your heart, or your stomach, and your guts, and your brain, and just putting it out there and being like, I made this, it's an expression of me right now, this is it, take it or leave it. And I've kind of felt like that's how Jandek's MO has been since day one. But yeah, this is super fun. They are so talented, and they play so expertly on this album. It's a great rockin', funky time. Highly recommend it. It's available through his Corwood Industries website. It might be online too, but support the artist, man. Buy it from him. It's like $10. I mean, you get a whole actual CD. You get to put it on your shelf. You get to look at it, show it off to your friends. Tangible things are cool, man. They're really cool. But that's it. My name is Giggens. This has been Jandek at Rudyards, or Rudyards. Rudyards? I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, so apologize. I'm apologizing if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but recorded in 2009, released in 2020. This thing for me is easily an 8 out of 10. It's so fun. It's just a great, fun time with Jandek and crew. So that's it. My name is Giggens. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Jandek, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.